Picture this. A dusty town square in 1885, the sun beating down on wooden buildings that haven't seen paint in years, and there, standing on a makeshift platform, is 18-year-old Lilian McCarthy, red hair catching the light like fire, hands tied behind her back, her own mother counting coins below. $50, calls out the richest man in town. His belly hangs over his belt like a sack of grain. His eyes crawl over Lilian like she's livestock. Lilian's mother, Martha, nods eagerly. She's strong, good for bearing children, can cook and clean. The words hit Lilian's ears like slaps. This is her mother, the woman who once sang her lullabies, who held her when she had nightmares, now selling her like a prize mare. $60, another man shouts. But the rich man waves him off. $100, final offer. His voice is cold as winter creek water. Martha's eyes light up. More money than she's seen in years. Sold! But Lilian has other plans. When the rich man climbs onto the platform, she kicks, hard, right between his legs. He doubles over, gasping like a fish on dry land. You little... he starts. But Lilian is already running, bare feet pounding the dirt. Her mother's screams fading behind her. She doesn't look back, can't look back. Because looking back means seeing the truth about the woman who brought her into this world. The desert stretches ahead like an ocean of sand and stone. She has no horse, no water, no plan, just the clothes on her back and a heart full of rage. Hours pass. The sun moves across the sky like God's own pocket watch. Her throat burns, her feet bleed, but she keeps running, because stopping means going back, and going back means... she can't even think it. As the sun sets, painting the sky red as her hair, she stumbles, falls, gets up again. The desert doesn't care about her pain. It just watches with 1,000 silent eyes. Then she sees it, a thin line of smoke rising in the distance, a chimney, a house, hope. Do you think she should trust strangers after what her own mother did to her? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. But what she found at that lonely ranch house would change her life forever. The ranch house sits in a valley like a ship in calm water. Lamplight glows in the windows. The smell of cooking meat makes Lilian's stomach growl like a wild animal. She approaches carefully, feet silent on the dusty ground. Every shadow could hide danger, every sound could mean capture. The front door stands solid as a gravestone. Her knuckles shake as she raises them to knock. 3 soft taps, then waits. Footsteps inside. Heavy boots on wooden floors, the door opens. A man stands there, 24, maybe 25. Blonde hair hangs past his collar, blue eyes like deep water. A beard covers half his face. He's tall enough to block out the lamplight behind him. They stare at each other, 2 broken souls meeting in the darkness. Please, Lilian whispers, I need help. Harold Grant looks at her torn dress, her bleeding feet. The desperation in her green eyes, something inside him recognizes something inside her. Pain, calling to pain. He doesn't ask questions, doesn't demand explanations, just steps aside. Come in, he says. His voice is rough from disuse, like he hasn't spoken to another person in months. The house is simple, clean, a kitchen table set for one, a single chair by the fireplace. This is the home of a man who expects no company, who wants no company. But here she is. You hungry? He asks. She nods. Can't remember her last real meal. He serves her stew from a pot on the stove. Bread that's still warm. She eats like she's been starving for weeks. Maybe she has been. Harold watches her eat, studies her face in the firelight. Red hair falls across her shoulders like autumn leaves. There's something familiar about her, something that tugs at old memories. What's your name? He asks finally. Lilian. She doesn't offer her last name. Names have power. They can track you down. I'm Harold Grant. She looks up sharply. Grant, like George Grant. His face goes hard as stone. You know my father. Everyone knows George Grant. Richest man in 3 counties, owns half the territory. Harold's jaw tightens. I'm not him. I can see that. She gestures around the simple room. This isn't exactly a mansion. No, it's not. His voice carries old wounds, old anger. They sit in silence, the fire crackles. Outside, coyotes sing their lonely songs. Why did you help me? Lilian asks. Harold stares into the flames. Made a promise once to someone who needed help. Said I'd never turn away another soul in need. What happened to them? The person you promised? His eyes find hers across the table. That's a story for another night. Have you ever had to choose between family loyalty and doing what's right? It's harder than you might think. Let me know what you would choose. But Harold's promise was about to be tested in ways he never imagined. So Chapter 3, Secrets in the Barn. 3 weeks pass like pages in a book. Lilian proves herself handy around the ranch. She mends fences, feeds the chickens, tends the vegetable garden. But it's with the horses that she truly shines. Harold watches from the barn door as she approaches his most difficult stallion, black as midnight and twice as mean. The horse has thrown every rider who's tried to mount him. "Easy, boy," Lilian whispers. Her voice is soft as silk. "I know what it's like to be angry, to want to hurt before you get hurt." The stallion's ears twitch. His wild eyes fix on her. She reaches out slowly. No sudden movements, her fingers barely brush his nose. The horse doesn't bite, doesn't rear, just stands there breathing hard. "That's it," she murmurs. "We're both survivors, aren't we?" Harold steps forward. "How did you do that?" Lilian turns, smiles for the first time since she arrived. "He just needed someone to understand." "Understand what?" "Fear, anger, the need to protect yourself when the world keeps hurting you." Harold nods slowly. He knows that feeling well. That evening, as they sit by the fire, Lilian asks the question that's been burning in her mind. "Why did you leave your father's house?" Harold's hands tighten around his coffee cup. Steam rises between them like ghosts. "I was 14, he says finally. "Thought I was becoming a man. My father had different ideas about what that meant." He stares into the fire. The flames dance like memories. "He sent a girl to my room, slave girl from his plantation. Told me it was time to learn about women." Lilian's breath catches. "Harold, she was maybe 16, scared out of her mind, shaking like a leaf." His voice drops to a whisper. "I looked at her, and I saw myself. Trapped, powerless, being used." "What did you do?" "I let her go. Helped her escape that very night, gave her money, a horse, told her to ride north and never look back." "And your father?" Harold's laugh is bitter as medicine. "Beat me within an inch of my life, said I was weak, ungrateful. A disappointment to the Grant name. So you left?" "That night. Took nothing but the clothes on my back, been running ever since." They sit in silence, two outcasts sharing their pain. "The girl," Lilian says softly. "What was her name?" Sarah Cole. I promised her that night that I'd never let anyone else suffer like she did, if I could help it." Lilian's heart pounds. "Sarah Cole? You know her?" Lilian's hands shake as she sets down her cup. "Harold, Sarah Cole was my mother's maiden name." The color drains from Harold's face. "That's impossible. My mother never talks about her past, but I found papers once, birth certificates, Sarah Cole, born on a plantation in Georgia." Harold stands abruptly, paces to the window. "If your mother is Sarah, then you saved her life and now you're saving mine." The truth hangs between them like a bridge they're both afraid to cross. Would you believe in a coincidence that big? Or do you think some things are just meant to be? I'm curious what you think. But the truth about Lilian's mother was more complicated than either of them knew. Canos Chapter 4, Letters from the Past. A month later, the mail rider brings a letter. Harold hands it to Lilian with shaking fingers. The envelope is addressed in shaky handwriting she recognizes. Her mother. Lilian tears it open with trembling hands. The words blur as she reads. "My dearest daughter, I know you hate me. I know you think I'm a monster, but there are things you don't understand, things I never told you. I was 16 when I ran from that plantation. Pregnant with you, the master's son, he wasn't kind. Harold Grant saved my life that night, gave me hope when I had none. I named you for his mother, Lilian Grant, the kindest woman I ever knew. I've been searching for you, for him. I have so much to tell you both, so much to explain. Please don't run again. I'm coming to find you. Your mother, Sarah." Lilian drops the letter like it's on fire. "She's coming here." Harold reads over her shoulder. His face goes white as winter snow. "She named you for my mother. Your mother was Lilian. Died when I was 12. Fever took her." His voice cracks. "She was the only person who ever truly loved me." Lilian stares at him. All this time I've been protecting the daughter of the woman I saved, named for the mother I lost." The weight of it settles over them like a blanket. Fate, destiny, call it what you will. "What do we do?" Lilian asks. "We wait. We listen. And we hope your mother has good reasons for what she did." 3 days later, a wagon appears on the horizon. A lone woman drives it, thin as a rail, hair gray before its time. Lilian's mother. She climbs down from the wagon seat with difficulty. Age and hardship have bent her like wind bends trees. "Lilian," she calls, "please, let me explain." Harold steps out of the house. Sarah sees him and gasps. "Harold? My God, look at you, you're a man now." "Mrs. Cole," his voice is carefully neutral, "or should I say Mrs. McCarthy?" "Sarah will do fine." She looks between them. "I see you've both figured it out." "Some of it," Lilian says coldly, "but not why you tried to sell me like cattle." Sarah's face crumples. Because I thought I was dying. The doctor said I had maybe 6 months. I wanted to make sure you were taken care of. By selling me to that pig? By getting you married to a man with money, security, I thought it was the only way. Harold steps forward. What about the doctor? What did he say exactly? Sarah pulls a crumpled paper from her pocket. See for yourself. Harold reads it. His eyebrows raise. This says you have consumption, but it's treatable with rest and good food. I can't read, Sarah whispers. The man who told me, he said I was dying. Said there was no hope. Lilian snatches the paper, studies it. The richest man in town, he told you this. Yes, he said he'd take care of you after I was gone. All I had to do was sell me to him. Lilian's voice is ice cold. He lied to you, Mama, used your fear to get what he wanted. Sarah collapses to her knees. What have I done? What have I done? Do you think a mother's desperation excuses the unforgivable? This is one of those questions that keeps me up at night. What's your take? But sometimes the greatest betrayals come from those we trust most. Chapter 5, The Widow's Warning. News travels fast in small towns, especially news about strangers. Eleanor Whitmore, the neighboring widow, arrives at Harold's ranch like a storm cloud. Her black dress rustles as she marches up to the front door. Harold Grant, she calls, we need to talk. Harold opens the door reluctantly. Eleanor is 60 if she's a day. Sharp eyes that miss nothing, a tongue that cuts like a knife. Mrs. Whitmore, what brings you by? Oh, you know what brings me by, that girl, and now her mother. People are talking. People always talk. Not like this. Eleanor pushes past him into the house, sees Lilian and Sarah sitting by the fire. Good. You're all here. She turns to face them like a judge at a trial. There's a bounty on your head, girl. $500, dead or alive. Lilian's blood turns to ice water. What? Posted this morning. Says you assaulted a prominent citizen, theft, destruction of property. Harold steps forward. That's impossible. She's been here for weeks. Doesn't matter what's true. Matters what people believe, and right now they believe you're harboring a dangerous criminal. Sarah stands up shakily. This is my fault, all of it. Eleanor's eyes soften slightly. Maybe, but it's done now. Question is, what are you going to do about it? We run, Lilian says immediately. Tonight, before anyone else comes looking. No. Harold's voice is firm. Running won't solve anything. It'll just make you look guilty. I'm guilty. I kicked him. I ran. You defended yourself. Eleanor interrupts. And from what I've heard around town, it wasn't the first time that man tried to buy something that wasn't for sale. Lilian looks up sharply. What do you mean? Eleanor sits down heavily. Child, that man has been collecting women like trophies for years. Mail-order brides who disappear after a few months. Immigrant girls who work in his house and never leave. Why doesn't anyone stop him? Because he owns half the town, and the other half owes him money. Harold's jaw tightens. Including the sheriff? Especially the sheriff. The room falls silent except for the crackling fire. There's something else, Eleanor says. A federal marshal is coming, real lawman, not one of his bought and paid for lackeys. When? Harold asks. 3 days, maybe 4. Sarah reaches for Lilian's hand. We could disappear, all of us, start over somewhere new. No. Lilian's voice is steady now, strong. I'm tired of running, tired of being afraid. Harold looks at her with something like pride. What do you want to do? I want to tell the truth, all of it, and let the chips fall where they may. Eleanor nods approvingly. That's the spirit, but you'll need help, people who'll stand with you. Why would you help us? Lilian asks. Eleanor's eyes grow distant. Because I was 16 once too, and scared and alone. Someone helped me then. Now it's my turn to help someone else. Have you ever had to choose between safety and standing up for what's right? It's one of the hardest decisions we ever make. What would you choose? But the marshal's arrival would bring more than just justice. Chapter 6, The Federal Marshal. Marshal James Patterson arrives on a Tuesday morning. Tall man with silver hair and eyes like winter steel. He rides a bay horse that's seen 1,000 miles of hard country. The whole town gathers to watch him dismount at the sheriff's office. Harold, Lilian, and Sarah watch from a distance. That's him, Eleanor whispers. Heard he cleaned up 3 corrupt towns between here and Denver. The marshal disappears inside the sheriff's office. Raised voices carry through the thin walls. The sheriff's whiny protests. The marshal's calm responses. 20 minutes later, both men emerge. The sheriff looks like he's swallowed a toad. The marshal looks satisfied. Citizens of Pine Ridge, Marshal Patterson calls out. His voice carries across the square. I'm here to investigate allegations of corruption, human trafficking, and abuse of authority. The crowd murmurs. Some faces show hope, others show fear. I'll be conducting interviews all week. Anyone with information about crimes committed by officials or prominent citizens, is encouraged to come forward. His eyes sweep the crowd, pause on Lilian, nods slightly. Justice isn't for sale in this territory, not anymore. That evening, Marshal Patterson visits Harold's ranch. He rides alone, no sheriff, no deputies. "Miss McCarthy," he says, removing his hat, "I believe we need to talk." They sit around the kitchen table. The marshal pours himself coffee from Harold's pot, studies each face carefully. "Tell me what happened," he says simply. Lilian tells him everything. The auction, the escape, finding Harold, her mother's deception, the bounty. Marshal Patterson listens without interruption, takes notes in a small leather book. "And you, Mr. Grant," he says when Lilian finishes. "What's your story?" Harold hesitates, looks at Sarah. She nods encouragingly. "I left my father's house 10 years ago, after he tried to force me to assault a slave girl." "This slave girl, was it Mrs. Cole here?" "Yes, sir." The marshal makes more notes. "Mrs. Cole, is this true?" Sarah's voice is barely a whisper. "Yes, Harold saved my life that." "And you never reported what George Grant tried to make his son do?" Who would have believed a runaway slave against one of the richest men in Georgia? The marshal nods grimly. "Times are changing, ma'am, slowly, but they're changing." He closes his notebook, looks at each of them in turn. "Here's what's going to happen. Tomorrow I'm arresting Thomas Hartwell for attempted human trafficking and extortion." "The rich man?" Lilian asks. "The very same. Turns out you're not his first victim, just the first one brave enough to fight back." "What about the bounty?" "Invalid. Issued by a corrupt sheriff at the request of a man who was himself committing crimes." Lilian feels a weight lift from her shoulders. "It's over." "The legal part, yes, but your real work is just beginning." "What do you mean?" Marshal Patterson stands, puts on his hat. "There are other girls out there, other women who need someone to speak for them, someone who understands." He looks directly at Lilian. "Someone who knows what it's like to be treated like property." The words hang in the air like a challenge. "Do you think survivors have a responsibility to help other survivors? It's a heavy burden, but maybe that's how we break the cycle. What do you think?" But Lilian's greatest test was still to come. Chapter 7, The Trial. The trial of Thomas Hartwell draws crowds from 3 counties. The courtroom overflows with spectators. Some come for justice, others for entertainment. Lilian sits in the front row. Harold on one side, Sarah on the other. Eleanor behind them like a guardian angel. Hartwell sits at the defendant's table in an expensive suit. His lawyer whispers in his ear. He looks confident, smug, like a man who's never faced real consequences. "All rise for the Honorable Judge William Crawford." The judge is older than Moses, white beard down to his chest, eyes that have seen every kind of human evil. "Be seated." Marshal Patterson, read the charges. "Thomas Hartwell, you stand accused of attempted human trafficking, extortion, bribery of public officials, and conspiracy to commit fraud." Hartwell's lawyer stands. "Your Honor, my client is a pillar of this community. These charges are baseless attacks on a successful businessman." "We'll let the evidence decide that, Counselor." "Marshal, call your first witness." The state calls Lilian McCarthy. Lilian's legs shake as she walks to the witness stand. Every eye in the room follows her. She places her hand on the Bible. "Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth?" "I do." The questions come slowly, gently. Marshal Patterson guides her through the story. The auction, her mother's desperation, Hartwell's lies about the medical diagnosis. "And when Mr. Hartwell approached you on the platform, what did he say?" Lilian's voice is steady, clear. "He said I was his property now, that I'd better get used to doing what I was told." "What did you do?" "I kicked him, hard as I could." Nervous laughter ripples through the courtroom. "Why did you kick him?" "Because I'm not property, I'm a human being." The crowd falls silent. The simple truth of it hangs in the air. Hartwell's lawyer cross-examines her, tries to make her seem wild, dangerous, ungrateful. "Isn't it true you attacked my client without provocation?" "No, sir. The provocation was him trying to buy me like livestock." "You could have refused the marriage." "How? My hands were tied, literally." "You could have gone to the authorities." Lilian looks directly at Hartwell. "Your client owned the authorities, just like he thought he owned me." The lawyer sits down, defeated. One by one, other witnesses take the stand. Women who had worked in Hartwell's house, immigrant girls who had mysteriously disappeared, the sheriff sweating bullets, admitting to taking bribes. Eleanor testifies about the bounty, about Hartwell's threats against anyone who helped Lilian. Sarah takes the stand with dignity, tells how Hartwell lied about her illness, used her fear to manipulate her into selling her daughter. Finally, Harold stands to testify. "State your name for the record." "Harold Grant." A murmur goes through the crowd. Everyone knows that name. Any relation to George Grant? He's my father, was my father. Why do you say was? Harold's voice carries 10 years of pain. Because I stopped being his son the night he tried to make me assault an innocent girl. Tell us about that night. Harold tells the story. His father's cruelty, Sarah's terror, his decision to help her escape. And now you're helping her daughter. Yes, sir. Why? Harold looks at Lilian. Because it's the right thing to do. Because everyone deserves a chance at freedom. And because some promises are worth keeping your whole life. The courtroom is silent as a church. The jury deliberates for exactly 17 minutes. Guilty on all counts. Hartwell's face goes pale. His lawyer slumps in his chair. Judge Crawford looks like an Old Testament prophet delivering judgment. Thomas Hartwell, you have used your wealth and position to prey upon the vulnerable, to treat human beings like commodities. This court sentences you to 15 years in federal prison. The gavel falls like thunder. Outside the courthouse, Lilian breathes free air for the first time in months. It's really over? She asks. This part is, Marshal Patterson says. But remember what I told you, there are others who need help. Sometimes justice comes slowly, but it comes. Have you ever seen someone powerful finally face consequences? It's something to behold. Share your thoughts below. But freedom brings its own challenges. Chapter 8, Building Something New. Spring comes to the valley like a promise kept. Green grass pushes through the winter earth. Wildflowers paint the hillsides. The creek runs high and clear. Lilian stands in Harold's garden, planting tomatoes. Her hands are dark with soil. Her face is brown from the sun. She looks nothing like the frightened girl who stumbled onto the ranch 6 months ago. You're smiling, Harold observes. He's mending a fence nearby. Am I? First time I've seen it. A real smile, I mean. Lilian touches her face. I guess I am. Feels strange. Good strange? Yeah, good strange. Sarah emerges from the chicken coop with a basket of eggs. Her health has improved dramatically with rest and regular meals. The grey is leaving her hair. The stoop is leaving her shoulders. What are you two chatting about? She asks. Lilian was smiling, Harold says. About time. Girl's got a beautiful smile, should use it more often. They work together in comfortable silence. 3 people who found each other when they needed it most. Eleanor rides up on her old mare. She's been visiting more often since the trial, bringing news from town, sometimes just bringing herself. Morning, folks. Got some interesting news from Marshal Patterson. They gather around her horse. He's offered Lilian a job. What kind of job? Harold asks. Helping other victims, testifying at trials, speaking to women who are afraid to come forward. Lilian sets down her gardening tools. He wants me to travel. Some, but based here, this would be your home base. The word home settles over them like sunshine. What do you think? Sarah asks her daughter. Lilian looks around the ranch. The house where she found safety. The barn where she learned to trust again, the man who kept his promise. I think I'd like to help, but I don't want to leave this place. You wouldn't have to, Eleanor says. Marshall's office would pay for a room to be added to the house for meetings, for women who need a safe place to stay. Harold nods slowly. We could do that, plenty of room. But it's your house, Lilian protests. No, Harold says quietly. It's our house, has been for months, just took us a while to admit it. Sarah wipes tears from her eyes. My daughter, helping other people's daughters. I can't think of anything better. That evening they sit on the front porch. The sun sets behind the mountains like God's own painting. Are you sure about this? Lilian asks Harold. Opening our home to strangers? They won't be strangers long, and besides, and he looks at her, someone opened their home to you. That was different. How? She thinks about it. I guess it wasn't different at all. A letter arrives the next week from a girl in Colorado. She's heard about Lilian's story. She needs help. Lilian reads the letter aloud by lamplight. Sarah and Harold listen intently. She's 15, Lilian says. Her stepfather is trying to marry her off to pay his gambling debts. What are you going to do? Sarah asks. Lilian folds the letter carefully. I'm going to help her the way someone helped me. Have you ever had the chance to be the help you needed when you were younger? It's one of life's greatest gifts. Tell me about a time you paid it forward. But helping others would bring unexpected challenges. Dundee Chapter 9. The Preacher's Challenge. Reverend Marcus Stone arrives in Pine Ridge like a desert storm. Tall, thin man with burning eyes and a voice that could wake the dead. He sets up his tent on the edge of town and starts preaching fire and brimstone. His first Sunday sermon draws half the town. I hear there are folks here living in sin, he thunders. A man and a woman sharing a house without the blessing of marriage, corrupting a young girl with their wicked ways. Everyone knows he's talking about Harold and Lilian. After the service, he rides out to the ranch. Harold meets him at the gate. Reverend Stone, I presume. Mr. Grant, we need to talk. About what? About your soul and the souls of those two women. Harold's jaw tightens. My soul is my own business. Not when you're leading others astray. That girl looks up to you. What kind of example are you setting? The example of helping someone in need. By living in sin with her? By giving her a safe place to heal? The preacher's eyes narrow. You expect me to believe nothing improper has happened between you? I expect you to mind your own business. But the preacher doesn't give up. He starts visiting other ranches, spreading doubts, asking questions about Harold's past, about Lilian's reputation. The gossip spreads like wildfire in dry grass. One evening, Lilian finds Harold sitting alone on the porch, his head in his hands. What's wrong? Maybe the preacher's right. Maybe I'm ruining your reputation by letting you stay here. Lilian sits beside him. Is that what you think? I don't know what to think anymore. People are talking, saying things. What kind of things? That you're my mistress. That Sarah is here to cover for our affair, that we're all living in sin. Lilian is quiet for a long moment. Do you care what they think? I care what it does to you, to your mother. You've been through enough. Harold. Her voice is gentle but firm. Look at me. He raises his head. His blue eyes are full of pain. I don't care what they think. This is my home. You're my family. That's all that matters. But your reputation. My reputation is that I'm a survivor. A woman who fought back. A person who helps other people. If that scandalizes them, that's their problem. Sarah appears in the doorway. Did I hear someone talking about reputations? The preacher's got people talking, Harold explains. Sarah laughs. Actually laughs. Honey, I was a runaway slave who had a baby out of wedlock. Then I spent 20 years pretending to be a widow. You think I care about some small-town gossip? Her laughter is infectious. Soon all three of them are laughing. The tension breaks like a fever. Besides, Sarah adds, there's an easy solution if it really bothers you. What's that? Lilian asks. Get married. The words hang in the air like smoke. Harold's face goes red. Sarah, Not for the town's sake, Sarah says quickly. For your own, because you love each other. Because you want to build a life together. Lilian looks at Harold. Harold looks at Lilian. Do we? Lilian asks softly. Love each other. Harold's voice is barely a whisper. I've loved you since the night you gentled that wild horse. Since I saw you had the same wounds I carry. I love you too, Lilian says. But not because you saved me, because of who you are, because of the man who keeps his promises. Do you think love born from shared trauma can become something beautiful? Or does it always carry those scars? I'd love to hear your thoughts. But the preacher wasn't finished with them yet. Chapter 10, The Test of Faith. Reverend Stone doesn't take kindly to being ignored. When Harold and Lilian announce their engagement, he sees it as confirmation of his suspicions. A marriage of convenience, he proclaims from his pulpit, to cover their sinful ways. But his real target isn't their relationship. It's Harold's past. Did you know, he tells his congregation, that this man is the son of George Grant, the same George Grant who owned slaves, who built his fortune on the backs of suffering people? The murmurs start small, grow louder. And now he harbors a woman who was born in slavery. Suspicious, don't you think? Like father, like son? The poison spreads. Some people start avoiding the ranch, others whisper behind their hands when they see Harold in town. Eleanor brings the news to them one evening. He's planning something, she warns. Been asking questions about Sarah's past. About you, Harold, about the night you left your father's house. What kind of questions? Harold asks. Whether you really helped Sarah escape, or whether you took advantage of her. Sarah's face goes pale. He wouldn't. He would and he will unless we stop him. How do we stop a preacher? Lilian asks. Eleanor's smile is sharp as a knife. With the truth, all of it. That Sunday, Harold does something he's never done before. He goes to church. He walks into the tent just as Reverend Stone is building to his climax. And this man, this so-called pillar of the community, carries the sins of his father. Reverend Stone. Harold's voice cuts through the tent like a sword. Every head turns. I'd like to respond to your accusations. The preacher's face flushes red. This is not the time or place. It's exactly the time and place, since you've made my private business public business. Harold walks down the center aisle. Every eye follows him. Lilian and Sarah slip in behind him. You want to know about my father? Fine. George Grant is a monster. He owned human beings, treated them like animals. And when I was 14, he tried to make me into the same kind of monster. The tent is silent as a tomb. He brought a young slave girl to my room, told me to take her, to use her, to prove I was a man. Women gasp, men shift uncomfortably. I looked at that terrified girl and I saw what my father really was, what he wanted me to become. So I made a choice. I helped her escape. I gave her money, a horse, and a promise. Harold's voice grows stronger. I promised that I would never let anyone suffer the way she suffered, if I could help it. He gestures to Sarah. That girl became Sarah McCarthy, the woman who raised Lilian with love and kindness. Despite everything she'd been through, Sarah steps forward. Her voice rings clear and strong. Harold Grant saved my life, and he saved my soul. He showed me that not all men are monsters, that some people keep their promises. And now, Harold continues, he's kept that promise again by helping Lilian, by opening his home to anyone who needs shelter. Reverend Stone tries to regain control. But living together unmarried, we're getting married next week, Lilian announces. Not because of gossip, but because we love each other, because we choose each other. And if that's not good enough for you, Harold says, looking directly at the preacher, then maybe you need to examine your own heart. See if there's room for forgiveness and redemption. The congregation sits in stunned silence. Then Eleanor stands up. I think Harold Grant is exactly the kind of man this town needs. Someone who stands up for what's right. Old Tom Miller stands next. Helped me fix my roof last winter. Didn't ask for payment. Mrs. Henderson rises. His ranch is a sanctuary. My niece stayed there when she left her abusive husband. One by one people stand, voices speaking up, stories of Harold's kindness, his quiet generosity. Reverend Stone looks around the tent, sees his congregation slipping away. This is not over, he sputters. Yes, it is, Harold says quietly, because the truth has a way of setting people free. Sometimes standing up for yourself means standing up in public. Have you ever had to defend your choices to people who didn't understand? It takes courage. Share your story below. But their wedding day would bring one final surprise. Chapter 11, The Wedding Gift. The wedding takes place on a Saturday morning in May. Wildflowers bloom everywhere. The air smells like hope and new beginnings. Judge Crawford comes out from town to perform the ceremony. Eleanor has decorated the front porch with ribbons and roses. Sarah has sewn Lilian a dress from cloth Harold bought in Denver. It's simple, beautiful, perfect. Dearly beloved, the judge begins, we are gathered here today. Harold wears his best shirt. His hands shake as he takes Lilian's fingers in his own. Do you, Harold Grant, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife, to love, honor, and cherish in sickness and in health, for richer or poorer, till death do you part? I do. His voice is steady now, sure. Do you, Lilian McCarthy, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband, to love, honor, and cherish in sickness and in health, for richer or poorer, till death do you part? Lilian looks into Harold's blue eyes, sees her future there, sees home. I do. By the power vested in me by the territory of Colorado, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride. Harold's kiss is gentle, reverent, like he's afraid she might disappear. But she doesn't disappear. She's real. She's his. They're each other's. The small crowd cheers. Eleanor cries happy tears. Sarah beams like the sun itself. Then they hear horses approaching. Everyone turns to see a fine carriage coming up the road. Black lacquer gleaming in the sunlight. 4 matched horses. A driver in uniform. The carriage stops. The door opens. George Grant steps out. Harold goes rigid. His face drains of color. Father! George Grant is older than Harold remembered. Grey hair, lines around his eyes, but still imposing, still radiating power and authority. Hello, son! The silence stretches like a held breath. What are you doing here? Harold asks. I came to see my boy get married, if he'll have me. Harold's laugh is bitter. 10 years of silence, and you show up now? I know I don't deserve it, but I'm asking anyway. George approaches slowly, like he's approaching a wild animal. I've done a lot of thinking since you left. About what kind of man I was, what kind of father. You were a monster. Yes, I was. George's voice is heavy with regret, but maybe I can be something better. He reaches into his coat, pulls out an envelope. This is the deed to 1,000 acres, good land, water rights, it's yours, wedding gift. Harold stares at the envelope. Why? Because I owe you. Because I owe her. George looks at Sarah. Because I've spent 10 years trying to figure out how to apologize for the unforgivable. Sarah steps forward, studies George's face, sees something there she didn't expect. You freed them, she says suddenly. The slaves, you freed them all. George nods. Day after Harold left. Realized my son was more of a man at 14 than I'd ever been. Started trying to become worthy of him. It doesn't change what you did, Harold says. No, it doesn't, but maybe it's a start. Harold looks at Lilian. She squeezes his hand. "What do you think?" he asks her. "I think," she says carefully, "that people can change if they truly want to, if they're willing to do the work." Harold studies his father's face, sees genuine remorse there, genuine hope. "One condition," he says finally. "Anything. You apologize to Sarah, properly, for what you tried to make me do to her." George turns to Sarah, gets down on one knee in the dirt. "Sarah Cole McCarthy, I am deeply, profoundly sorry for the pain I caused you, for the fear, for treating you as less than human. I can never undo it, but I swear on my son's honor that I will spend the rest of my life trying to make amends." Sarah looks down at this powerful man kneeling before her, remembers the terrified girl she once was. "I forgive you," she says simply. "Not for your sake, for mine, because forgiveness sets us free." George stands, tears run down his weathered cheeks. "Thank you," he whispers. Judge Crawford clears his throat. "Well, this has been the most interesting wedding I've ever performed." Everyone laughs, the tension breaks. "Now," Eleanor announces, "let's eat, I've got a feast waiting inside." As they move toward the house, George falls into step beside Harold. "I know I can't be your father again," he says. "Not the way I was, but maybe I can be something else, something better." Harold considers this. "Maybe, we'll see." "That's all I can ask. Do you believe people can truly change? That redemption is possible even for the worst mistakes? It's one of the hardest questions we face. What's your take?" But the greatest test of their new life was just beginning. Chapter 12, The Storm. 2 months after the wedding, the first girl arrives. Her name is Maria Santos, 16 years old, bruises on her arms, fear in her dark eyes. She speaks only Spanish at first. Lilian holds her while she cries. Doesn't need words to understand. Her uncle was selling her to a brothel in Denver, Marshall Patterson explains. She escaped, walked 40 miles to get here. She's safe now, Lilian says firmly. They give Maria the new room George's money helped build. Soft bed, clean clothes, as much time as she needs. Within a week, 2 more girls arrive, then another. Word spreads through underground networks, whispered conversations, coded letters. Harold's ranch becomes known as a place of refuge, a sanctuary. But not everyone approves. "You're attracting the wrong kind of attention," the new sheriff warns. He's honest, unlike his predecessor, but worried. "These girls, they're fleeing from dangerous people. All the more reason to help them," Harold replies. "These men don't like losing their property. They might come looking. Let them come." But Lilian sees the worry in Harold's eyes, the way he checks the windows at night, keeps his rifle closer. The storm breaks on a Tuesday evening in September. 6 men ride up to the house, hard faces, harder eyes, guns on their hips. Their leader is a man named Dutch Morrison, big as a bear, mean as a rattlesnake. "We're looking for some girls," he calls out. "Runaway property, we're here to collect them." Harold steps onto the porch. Lilian and Sarah appear behind him. "Nobody here is property," Harold says calmly. "That's not what their owners say. Their owners don't have a legal claim. Slavery's been abolished." Dutch laughs. "Not talking about slaves, boy, talking about indentured servants, debt contracts, legal arrangements. Show me the papers." Dutch produces a handful of documents. Harold examines them. Some look legitimate, others are obvious forgeries. "Even if these were real," Harold says, "which most aren't, these girls are under federal protection now. You can't just take them. Watch us." Dutch signals his men. They start to dismount. "I wouldn't do that if I were you." The voice comes from the barn. Eleanor steps out carrying a shotgun. Behind her come Tom Miller, the Henderson boys, and a dozen other neighbors. "This is a federal matter now," Eleanor announces. "Marshall Patterson's been notified. He'll be here within the hour." Dutch eyes the assembled crowd, counts weapons, calculates odds. "This isn't over," he snarls. "Yes, it is," Harold says, "because these girls are under my protection now, and I keep my promises." "Your promises don't mean nothing to me." "They mean everything to me." The standoff stretches. 6 desperate men against a dozen determined neighbors. Finally, Dutch spits in the dirt. "Mount up," he tells his men. They ride away, but not far. Lilian can see their campfire in the distance that night. "They'll be back," she tells Harold. "I know. Maybe we should move the girls. Send them somewhere safer." Harold shakes his head. "This is their sanctuary. We don't abandon sanctuaries. Even if it puts us all at risk? Especially then." That night, they take turns keeping watch. Lilian sits by the window with Harold's rifle across her knees. Maria appears beside her. The girl has learned some English in her weeks at the ranch. "I go," she whispers. "Not want trouble for you." "No," Lilian says firmly. "You stay. This is your home now." "But the bad men?" "The bad men don't get to win, not anymore." Maria nods. settles beside Lilian at the window. "How teach me shoot gun?" she asks. Lilian smiles grimly. "I'll teach you a lot of things, starting with the fact that you're not property, you're a person, and people have the right to defend themselves. Have you ever had to stand up to bullies who thought they could take what wasn't theirs? Sometimes the only way to stop them is to show them you won't back down. What would you do in this situation?" But Dutch Morrison wasn't done with them yet. Chapter 13, The Final Stand. Dutch and his men return 3 days later, but this time they don't ride up to the house. They come in the dark, like wolves hunting sheep. Harold hears them first. The soft jingle of spurs, the whisper of hooves on grass. He shakes Lilian awake. They're here. She's dressed and armed in seconds. Sarah wakes the girls, gets them into the cellar where they've practiced hiding. Harold peers out the window, counts shadows moving in the moonlight. 8 of them now, he whispers. They brought reinforcements. Where's Marshal Patterson? Still 2 hours away at least. Helena's shotgun booms from her house across the valley. Warning shot or actual fighting, they can't tell. Light the signal fire, Harold tells Lilian. She runs to the barn, touches a match to the oil-soaked wood they've prepared. Flames leap into the night sky. Across the valley, answering fires spring up. Tom Miller, the Hendersons, other neighbors who've pledged to help. Dutch's voice carries across the darkness. "Send out the girls, Grant. Nobody has to get hurt." "Go to hell, Dutch." Gunfire erupts. Bullets splinter the doorframe where Harold was standing. He dives behind the thick log walls, returns fire through the window. "How many?" Lilian asks. "Too many, but help's coming." More gunfire. A window shatters. Sarah cries out from the cellar. "I'm hit," she calls. "Not bad, just grazed." Lilian starts toward the cellar door. Harold grabs her arm. "Stay down, keep shooting." "I'm not leaving my mother. She's safer down there than up here." A torch arcs through the darkness, lands on the roof. Flames start to spread. "They're trying to burn us out," Harold says. Lilian climbs into the loft, beats at the flames with a wet blanket. The fire hisses and dies. Another torch. This one hits the barn. "The horses," Harold says desperately. "I'll get them." Lilian is already moving. "It's too dangerous." They're family too. She slips out the back door, runs in a crouch toward the burning barn. Bullets whine overhead. Inside the barn, the horses scream in terror. Smoke fills the air like fog. Lilian opens stall after stall, slaps flanks, drives the animals toward safety. The black stallion, the one she gentled months ago, rears as flames lick at his hooves. "Come on, boy," she whispers. "Trust me." The horse looks at her with wild eyes, then follows her toward the door. More gunfire. A bullet takes splinters from the beam above her head. She makes it outside. The horses scatter into the darkness. "Lilian!" Harold's voice desperate with fear. She runs back toward the house. Dutch Morrison steps out of the shadows. His gun is pointed at her heart. Well, the famous Lilian Grant. You've caused me a lot of trouble, little girl." "I'm not a little girl, and I'm not afraid of you." "You should be." His finger tightens on the trigger. The shot rings out. Dutch staggers, looks down at the spreading red stain on his shirt. Behind him, Maria Santos holds Harold's rifle. Her hands shake, but her aim was true. "I learn good," she says quietly. Dutch falls to his knees, then forward into the dirt. The gunfire from the other attackers falters, then stops. "Dutch," one of them calls. "Dutch, you all right?" Silence. Horse hooves thunder in the distance. Marshal Patterson and his deputies arrive like cavalry in a dime novel. The remaining attackers scatter into the darkness. Some escape, others don't. By dawn, it's over. They sit on the porch as the sun rises, watching the barn burn down to smoking timbers. "We'll rebuild," Harold says. "Bigger," Lilian adds. "Better." Maria sits between them, no longer the terrified girl who arrived weeks ago. "I stay," she announces. "Help other girls like you help me." "It won't be easy," Lilian warns. "Men like Dutch, there are more of them out there. Then we be ready for them too." Marshal Patterson approaches. His face is grim but satisfied. Dutch Morrison is dead. 3 of his men in custody. The others scattered to the wind. "Will they be back?" Harold asks. "Different men, maybe, but not these men. Word will spread. This place is defended. These people fight back." He looks at Maria. "Nice shooting, miss." She nods seriously. "Lilian teach me, say women must protect each other." She's right about. As the marshal rides away, George Grant's carriage appears on the horizon. He climbs down slowly, surveys the damage. "Heard there was trouble," he says simply. "Nothing we couldn't handle," Harold replies. George nods. "Good. But I brought some men anyway. Workers, carpenters, time to build you a proper sanctuary." He looks at the burned barn, the bullet holes in the house, the determined faces of his son and daughter-in-law. "I'm proud of you," he says. "Both of you. Your mother would be proud too, Harold." For the first time in 10 years, Harold smiles at his father. "Thanks, Dad. Sometimes you have to fight for what you believe in. Not with hate, but with love. Love for the people you're protecting. Have you ever had to take a stand for someone who couldn't stand for themselves? Share your story." But their real victory was just beginning. There's Chapter 14, Home. 1 year later, the ranch looks nothing like it did when Lilian first stumbled onto it. A new barn bigger than the old one. Additional rooms on the house. A schoolhouse where the girls learn reading, writing, and how to defend themselves. 15 girls now call it home. Some stay for weeks, others for months. A few have stayed permanently, helping to run the sanctuary. Lilian stands in the doorway of the schoolhouse, watching Maria teach younger girls how to read. Her belly is round with her first child, due any day now. "How are you feeling?" Harold asks, sliding his arms around her from behind. "Like I swallowed a watermelon." He laughs. "Want to sit down?" "I've been sitting all morning. The baby likes it when I move around." They walk slowly toward the house. Past the vegetable garden Sarah tends with religious devotion. Past the new well George's money helped dig. "Letter came today," Harold says, "from the governor. What does he want?" "To make this an official federal sanctuary. Protection under territorial law." Lilian stops walking. "Really?" "Really. Marshal Patterson recommended it. Says what we've built here could be a model for other territories. Other sanctuaries, all across the West. Safe houses for women and girls who need help." Lilian places her hand on her belly, feels the baby kick. "Our child will grow up in a world where sanctuaries exist," she says wonderingly. "Because of you. Because you were brave enough to fight back. Because of us. Because we found each other." They reach the porch. Sarah sits in her rocking chair, mending clothes. She looks up as they approach. "How's my grandbaby today?" "Active," Lilian says, settling carefully into a chair. "Good. Strong babies move around, shows they're fighters." Eleanor rides up on her old mare. She's become the sanctuary's unofficial coordinator, matching girls with families who need help, or jobs in towns where they can start over. "Got news from Denver," she announces. 3 more girls need placement. Can we take them?" "Always room for 3 more," Lilian says immediately. "You sure, with the baby coming?" "Especially with the baby coming. This child needs to understand from the beginning that family isn't just about blood. It's about choosing to love and protect each other." That evening they gather for dinner. 15 girls around an enormous table George helped build. Voices in Spanish, English, and 3 native languages mixing together like music. Maria stands to make an announcement. "I have news," she says in careful English. "I'm getting married." Cheers erupt around the table. "To Tom Miller's son James, he is good man. Ask my permission, not just Harold's." More cheers. Harold grins. "And," Maria continues, "we want to build house here, raise family here, help with sanctuary. There's nothing I'd like better," Harold says. After dinner, Harold and Lilian sit on the porch. The sun sets behind the mountains, painting the sky in shades of gold and red. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't run that night?" Harold asks. "No," Lilian says immediately, "because then I wouldn't have found you, wouldn't have found this." "This?" She gestures around them, at the house full of laughter, at the girls who found safety, at the family they've built from broken pieces. "Home," she says simply. "I wouldn't have found home. A year ago, Lilian was a terrified girl running from her own mother's betrayal. Tonight, she's a woman surrounded by chosen family, expecting a child, building something that will outlast them all." "What should we name the baby?" Harold asks. "If it's a girl, Hope. And if it's a boy, Promise. Because this place, this family, this sanctuary, it all started with a promise you made to my mother when she was young and scared." Harold takes her hand, feels the wedding ring he placed there, thinks about the night 10 years ago when he helped a terrified slave girl escape. How that single act of courage led to this moment. "Some promises," he says, "are worth keeping your whole life." "Some promises," Lilian agrees, "change everything." As if summoned by their words, the baby decides it's time to be born. Lilian's labor begins with the sunrise, and by sunset, Hope Elizabeth Grant takes her first breath in a house full of love. She's born into a world where sanctuaries exist, where women and girls have places to run to when they need help, where broken people can heal and build new families from the ashes of the old. The ranch that started as Harold's lonely refuge has become something bigger, a symbol, a promise kept, a place where the most important words aren't for sale or property, but welcome home. And sometimes, late at night when the desert wind sings through the mountains, You can still hear the echo of all the promises that brought them here, all the courage it took to build something beautiful from something broken, all the love it takes to keep a sanctuary strong. What promises have shaped your life? What sanctuaries have you found or built? Sometimes our greatest purpose comes from our deepest pain. I'd love to hear your story. This is just the beginning of what they built together, because some stories don't end. They just begin again with each new person who finds their way home.